Okay, let me get diving into today's training. In today's training, we're going to be talking about what you can do after you respond to an RFI. I've done 100 plus trainings on RFIs. I believe the RFI can be used to go win contracts. Certainly, if you're an 8A small business, right, you can go after these contracts. I also recently did 2 days ago, so today is June 5th, so June 3rd, I did a before you respond to RFIs. So what are the kind of activities you can be doing before you write and respond to an RFI? And today I'll be talking about after you respond to an RFI. But put those together and you really start having a good strategy around RFIs being used for your success. One of the reasons I'm using this topic or choosing this topic is because I hear from people a lot, and I see it on the internet, on LinkedIn, where people feel like, man, it's just a wasted exercise for me to respond to an RFI. I respond, it goes into a black hole, et cetera. And the reality is, yes, that might happen occasionally, but other times it doesn't. It's a hit or miss. And the thing about it is, if you're writing RFI responses for what you're good at, then you can keep them from going into the black hole. I call this taking responsibility in order to gain control. Take responsibility in order to gain control. What I mean by this is that if you take responsibility for why you and the federal buyer are not engaging on your RFI response and talking about that RFI's requirement and where it might be going towards an RFP, if you're not taking responsibility, but instead you're saying, hey, federal buyer, I did my part. I sent the RFI response. Now I'm waiting for you to get back to me. I pinged you once, I emailed you, maybe I called, and you haven't got back to me. And now I'm waiting on you. You've got the responsibility, federal buyer, to get back to me. Well, when you leave the responsibility with them, right? And I don't mean blame. I just mean when you say the ball's in their court, well, it literally is in their court and they're in complete control. And what I'm saying is put the ball back in your court. Take responsibility for you and the federal buyer coming together. They want to talk with you. And I'll talk more about that in a minute, but they want to talk with you. And so when you take responsibility and you say the engagement on this RFI response is up to me. The keeping the RFI out of a black hole is up to me. It's my responsibility. Then you sit there and say to yourself, well, what do I do to keep it out of the black hole? That's what today's training is going to be about. That's what we're going to be talking about. That's the tips I want to share with you. One other thing I put here on this slide is that RFIs, I love RFIs. The sources sought, I use them interchangeable. By the way, if you don't know this, RFIs basically should be used by the government to discuss the requirements, the scope of work. Sources sought is used by the government to see who in the industry might bid on a requirement they have. That's basic difference, but we all use them pretty much interchangeable. RFIs are the tip of the spear of your capture activity. Tomorrow is the anniversary of D-Day from World War II, where the Allies established a beachhead on Normandy and then pushed into Europe and basically leading to the end of World War II, right? But it started with that beachhead. And you're doing the same thing in building a relationship with your federal buyers. You're establishing a beachhead with that RFI, right? And I don't know if I'm mixing my metaphors there where I'm saying it's the tip of the spear or you're establishing a beachhead, but hopefully one of those two analogies or whatever metaphors make it easy for you to understand that the RFI submittal, the response, is just the start. Push the rest of the spear in or expand your beachhead and take a real good presence on France. Okay, I think I pushed that one pretty far. In today's training, when we talk about what you can do after you submit an RFI, I'm going to break it up into 3 parts. The first thing is why it's really important for you to be relentless, have a relentless, persistent pursuit, right? It's very important. This is what I meant by take responsibility to gain control. That's where I'm going to really expand on that. The second thing I want to talk about is who can you talk to? I want to give you all sorts of ideas of who you can talk to after you send an RFI to keep it from going into that black hole. And then the third thing I'll wrap up with are how you can rise above the competition on your journey to the RFP. So if the RFI is being submitted here, in that journey, this stuff in between is the acquisition lifecycle, or in our case, the sales lifecycle, and then the RFP drops, right? Where you pretty much can't talk to the government anymore. And so what I want to do is give you some tips for how you can rise above your competitors and be visible in your buyer's eyes. And these things, these are just skills, right? I really want you to understand that you can learn them, practice them, and start getting good at them. If you don't know who I am, my name is 𝗟𝗚_McDonald. I'm the president of the 𝗟𝗶_𝗀𝗃 Chamber of Commerce. I'm co-founder of 𝗟𝗏 in a Box, and I want to welcome you to my federal sales training where I provide tips for success in the federal market. I spent 20 years in the federal market after I got out of the Army as a small business owner. Since 2018, I've been teaching people like you that government contracting is not a secret. It's just a process. When we follow a process A to Z, we're going to have repeatable, predictable results. And this is what I want for you. It's why I come back time after time with training. The important thing to remember about a process is there's a follow-on line in there that is called process improvement. And this basically means reevaluate your process to make sure it's always working for you and improve that process if it needs to be. So 2025, for example, there are a lot of process changes that we're having to integrate in order to deal with the new administration's way of doing business. That's just sales, that's just business. Okay, if you haven't already registered for tomorrow's training, tomorrow I got a training teaching you basically how to create a strategic plan for 2026. The sales or the revenue in 26 comes from your sales activity today. But I help you put in place a strategic plan that lets you have one single page that helps everybody understand what we're doing, where we're going, et cetera. We call it, I think, one team, one plan, one goal, right? And so register for the training for that tomorrow. I'll walk you through how do I do that with my customers so you can do it yourself. The last thing is, if you're not connected with me on LinkedIn or subscribe to my newsletter, make sure you do so. This is where we engage with each other in the federal market. Let's talk about why it's really important and why relentless, persistent pursuit is vital to your success. And making sure, like, I'm doubling down on relentless and persistent, right? Never give up is what I could have wrote there. Why you must never give up on pursuing the RFI. You chose to write it. Let's go after it, right? I came up with this little way of looking at the RFI today, and I liked how I did. I liked it so much I put a post out on LinkedIn and try to let people know. But to me, an RFI is a love letter to the federal buyers, right? And if I'm going to write a love letter to somebody I like, and why would I not pursue them after that? Why would I not follow back up? Hey, did you get my letter? Right? Can we talk? Can we date? Whatever, right? A love letter, not with not having pursued afterwards or a follow-up afterwards doesn't make any sense. And it's the same thing with an RFI, right? Submitting an RFI to a federal buyer because you like them and you want to work with them, it doesn't really lead to success if you don't follow up. And that's why it's very important that you do follow up. You don't want to just take an RFI, fire and forget, right? Fire and forget's a military term where we can fire a missile or something, we forget about it because it's already locked on the target, it knows what it's doing, and then we move on to the next thing, fire and forget. And a lot of us do fire and forget in our lives where we maybe should not. An example is RFIs. Don't just write an RFI and send it and then forget about it. I don't care how many RFIs you're writing if you're not following up. Otherwise, you just basically, and I say this very softly, you're basically just spamming the government with an RFI response if all you're doing is throwing it over. That means you don't really care enough to have a conversation with them. So make sure you're pursuing that RFI. RFIs are a solid part of capture. Capture on an opportunity happens and begins when you first hear about the opportunity. That's when capture happens. But the RFI is like the official journey of that acquisition lifecycle. There's activity that's happening. But when the government does an RFI or sources sought, theoretically, they're really trying to aim towards a RFP or RFQ coming out. And so for us, that's capture. Sales and acquisition life cycles, they align with each other. And so you don't want to just let an RFI go out there and not treat it like it's an opportunity. I think sometimes we find an opportunity, put it in our pipeline, pursue it. But other times we'll find an RFI and just write a response and not do anything. That pursuit you did on an opportunity in your pipeline, RFIs are in that same vein. So the fourth bullet here, learn the review process and players. So I'm coming back to a little bit about why it's important to follow up. When you follow up with somebody and you can get conversations, you can begin to talk to them about who's looking at this RFI, right? What's the review process? Are you looking at it and checking off how many women-owned small businesses responded? So that's that process. How are you managing that? And then also the players. right? This is open discussion. I think the next point here is the whole point of RFIs is sources sought to actually engage industry. The government is putting out constantly myths about engaging with industry to the government contracting officers and to their support staff, et cetera, right? Saying, look, it's okay to talk to industry until the RFP drops. The whole point of us doing an RFI and a sources sought is to engage industry, is to have conversations. And when we have those conversations, we can learn a lot more, and the government can do that same thing. So we help take control of that process. The second to last bullet here, right? Don't accept roadblocks or gatekeepers. This is really important. When you think with a mindset of relentless, persistent pursuit, you will not accept a gatekeeper, a contracting officer who you sent the RFI to who doesn't respond. You won't accept that gatekeeper. Or where they say, just watch Sam. You won't accept that. Don't accept that. Figure out a different way. You're not going to be able to knock them down. You're not going to be able to make them give you what you want. But there's so many other ways to go around it. It's the same thing with a roadblock. You have to go forward. There's this old Irish story, and I might butcher it a little bit, but this idea of what do the Irish do when they hit a wall, a roadblock, a wall? They take off their cap and they throw it to the other side. It's like, what? That's crazy. No, it means I really want my cap. It's precious to me. Now I'm going to do whatever I can to get over the wall and go get my cap, right? And you want to have that same level of persistent drive towards the discussion with the federal buyers. And then the last one here is don't be afraid of getting on the naughty list. Some people call it a blacklist. Some people call it a government won't ever talk to me again. That list doesn't exist, right? In every single thing in life, there's always an exception. Forget about the exception. The norm, there are no naughty lists where the government says, oh, Neil followed up too many times. Now, if I'm unprofessional, I'm going to get a reputation for being unprofessional and brutal or unresponsive, right? I don't pay attention to details. Well, if I'm doing stupid stuff, I'm going to get on a list a little bit. But if all you're doing is following up and being persistent, you're not going to get on a naughty list. You're not going to get on a list where they're like, oh, I'm never going to accept their contract. The reality is they're probably not even thinking of you. My sister, Cecilia, who's in here, and I see her right there, LinkedIn for GovCon, she tells this line, and she's borrowed this from our mom, and I'm about to butcher it again. Apparently, I butcher all my lines. But the idea is you wouldn't care what other people think about you when you'd realize how infrequently or how little they're thinking of you. So we're following up with a contracting officer, for example, trying to chase that RFI. And we're like, oh, they're going to get mad at me because I'm responding. No, they're probably not even seeing your emails. It's coming in, going down, coming in, going down, right? And so don't feel bad. In sales, we say the answer is always yes until you tell me no, right? I'm not going to assume the answer is no until you tell me yes. Sales, we have to operate from the opposite side. They're thinking about you, Crystal. They're just not thinking about me. So if you're watching chat, have fun with chat. Okay, who can help us? I sent an RFI over and I responded. So clearly I sent it to the person they said to send it to, which is usually the contract officer, contract specialist. So they're the first group who can help me keep this RFI from going into a black hole, right? I can follow up with them and do a little bit of engagement, making sure you received it. I'd like to just stay on your radar. I don't want to get in your hair and annoy you, but I do want to make sure I don't miss this opportunity. And sometimes it hits Sam and anything could happen. So I want to follow up with you. Contract officer, contract specialist, you want to engage with them. This is why I say, go watch my video from 2 days ago where I said what to do before you send the response in. That's when you're starting to build a relationship with the contracting officer and specialist. Another group of people I put on here are, I'm calling them contract branch and or division chiefs. Basically the supervisors of the very people you're sending an RFI to. There's nothing wrong with having an escalation path. The federal buyer wants an escalation path with me. Hey, Neil, if you're not doing something, who do we escalate it to? Right? And that's a normal thing in my commitment to them when I'm working with them. Well, here I can do the same thing. If you're not responding to me, if you're not engaging with me in the RFI phase during market research, then I'm going to go to your boss and I'm going to really softly go to your boss and say, I would probably use a tactic like, I'm probably doing something totally wrong. Could you help me understand what I'm doing wrong? And my understanding is market research is where we engage with each other. When you start escalating it, you start getting it to people who remember that market research is to engage the industry, not be a win-lose where the government wins by getting the industry to write all sorts of stuff, right? So this goes back to my thing earlier. Don't accept those roadblocks and have ideas of how you can get past the roadblock. All right, third group of people are program office personnel. This is a really important one. This is where you have to work, right? And I've done 1,000 trainings on this. That might be a little bit of an overstatement, but I've done a ton of training on how do you get into the program office and how do you start pursuing. But generally, when you're submitting an RFI, a lot of us don't have any idea who the people are. Well, early on, you want to find out who those program office people are. You want to know who the program or what the program office is, and then find people in there. And then you want to start engaging these people. These people are the ones that are going to tell you a lot more about the requirements, about the challenges, the objectives and goals they have. And they'll tell you stuff that won't end up hitting the RFP, right? They're not going to tell you anything underhanded in a sense, but just from conversations, just from you engaging them, you will learn more than what gets put into paper. The third group of people I'm talking about are small business professionals. These are the typical, small business deputy or small business specialist at a particular agency. But another one I put in here is federal small business liaisons is what I'm calling them. But inside of program executive offices, as an example, they don't have dedicated small business specialists or whatever. So they named the deputy program executive officer or whatever, said, hey, your job is to engage with small business industry. So they have a way of getting in here and not just the largest. So figure out who those small business liaisons are in the federal agency that don't have the title of small business specialist, but will help and engage. And the last one is industry partners. Reach into the agency you just sent that RFI to and find industry partners that you can build relationships with. Maybe you actually teamed with somebody who's in that program office or that agency already, and you can engage with them. Or for me, if I send an RFI in somewhere, I would go find 10 or 20 companies that are already winning in there to try to find 2 or 3 that are willing to talk with me and help introduce me to somebody inside there. Remember, going back and trying to meet the program office or core, things like that. Okay, so that's who can help you, right? The why, the who, and now let's talk a little bit about what you can do to rise above the competitors in this journey. And just as a reminder, when you submit an RFI, it's the beginning, it's the continuation of a captured journey. You have an opportunity, the RFI is responding to that requirement, the title, right? That opportunity, the RFI response is just you providing some information, and it tends to be the first formal engagement with the buyer, right? And then you got the RFP all the way over here. So this whole path in between is a journey, and that path is almost always a significant amount of time for you to be able to talk with them. Sometimes it's way too long, right? It's years, but often it could be like 2 or 3 months plus. Rarely does an RFI come out and then it needs to be responded really fast and the RFP drops, except for the end of the year. You will see it pick up speed. But earlier in the year, you have a little bit more time. And so you want to get in there and start engaging with the buyer during this time. That's the contractor officer, the program office in particular. When you engage with these people, you start rising above your competitors, right? They see you, they see your company name, they see you, they see an email from you or a voicemail. They have discussions. You're demonstrating your expertise in what your company does and what you responded to within that RFI. So ways you can do this is one of the first ways you can do this is just constantly follow up with those people on email and voicemail. You figure out that pattern, but for me, I wouldn't go any farther than once a week. Just touch and base. And it could be a phone call one week and an email the next week. It depends on how soon it's coming out. If it's coming out sooner, then I'm calling or emailing at least once a week to get on their radar, right? But it's my responsibility to make sure I don't miss anything about that RFI turning into an RFP. It's also my responsibility to get in and learn. It's your responsibility, right? And one of the easiest ways is just regular communication. 2-minute call. Hey, Jane, I'm just calling. I don't want to bug you. I just want to let you know I'm still very interested in that RFI. And most often you'll get voicemail, right? Or you send an email. So you don't even have to really interrupt them, but they will see it. They will see this persistence. They will see your commitment to wanting to work with them. There's an easy balance there. As long as you're professional and friendly, no one's going to be offended. They'll just ignore you, right? But that's not a bad thing. They're busy and that's fine. Second thing you can do, and this is a huge thing, is send additional content. You gave me an RFI and it was about this requirement. You had these challenges and pain points, and I sent you my 3-page response or 5-page response or whatever it is, right? I sent you an RFI response, but there is so much more I wanted to put in there that was beyond the page count. Well, it's totally cool. The conversation didn't stop just because the RFI due date is done, right? Or you submitted a response. Send them additional related content to that RFI. I do this by videos. So I might do a video. If I was doing Microsoft SharePoint, right, I might do a video where I have a slide and I'm demonstrating, look, one of the things you want to pay attention to and that we really focus on when we work with our customers is upgrading to a new version of SharePoint requires you to look at any homegrown software solutions. And those tend to be out of the box, third party, or custom solutions. And so we recommend you really put that in place and take account of that. Whatever it is, right? A 2-minute video. They're like, no kidding, I hadn't thought of that, right? You want to give them a lot of, I hadn't thought of that. And it's you giving it. And you got a little branding on the video that says from Neil or from, GovCon Chamber or whatever, right? That's a little video tips that you can give them. The other thing is you could do, and by the way, put it on YouTube and you can make it visible or just a hidden one and send the link, because then they send it to their colleagues in their program office. You want more people looking at it, and then you can watch on YouTube to see how many people actually went in and watched the video. Did they watch the whole video? You start learning about that. Separate training. All right, second thing is the white papers. You can send a white paper about a particular topic. I might look at, an example is I use a tool called Microsoft Paint. It is like 5,000 years old, but it always worked for me and I used it. But now Microsoft Paint is no longer going to be supported by the government, right? And if I was trying to reach into the government and sell them a replacement to Microsoft Paint or whatever, I could write a mini white paper, 1 page, 3 pages, that talks about what Microsoft's about to do. They're going to get rid of Microsoft Paint. You're going to have no more support. This is what's going to happen to your files, and these are the alternate solutions you might try, right? Something like that. It's a white paper I could throw out on LinkedIn, and people say, hey, that's a cool tip. Well, in your area of expertise around the RFI that you sent, you could do that same thing. You're providing them just continuous information. And depending on how long it is, right, consider that at least once a month. Why not engage them? You just wrote an RFI. You want that $1 million or $5 million or $100 million contract. Keep engaging them. Give them value that you keep appearing as the subject matter expert, that trusted advisor that maybe they're not even talking to, right, through the content. And the last one is case studies. This is where you talk about the RFI, but you expand on the RFI response as well. You expand on where you've done this before. Hey, I just wanted to share something else. This was the challenge. This is how we approached it. And this was the benefit. And it aligns to the challenges that they might have and the benefits that they might want. Those are ways to use additional content to be able to just stay on the radar, especially of the program office. And I would send that to the small business professional or to the contracting officer. Say, hey, would you mind sending this over? I wouldn't even actually reference the RFI so much, right? It's just, I think this would be valuable to them. It relates to what they were trying to find in the research. All right, you can engage on LinkedIn where we're at and just get out there and follow program office people. If they're posting content, you can engage. You're just raising your visibility to start with engagement on LinkedIn. And then you might be able to contribute content really, or comments, right? Really well thought out comments about whatever they might post. If you are trying to go after a particular RFI in this program office and you've identified these 5 or 10 people who are on LinkedIn and pretty active, and it'd be great if you could have a meeting with them, follow them every single day. Look at their profile, 2 seconds. You look at their profile. No, they didn't talk today. Fine. Come back the next day. But when they engage on something, figure out how to engage, and no AI stuff. Get in there and engage like the expert you are. Don't just, use some AI generated thing, because they will see it and it'll turn them off, blah, blah, blah. You can attend events. So the RFI and a related event might be an industry day if it's a bigger opportunity. So an industry day is generally a meeting with industry just about one particular opportunity. Sometimes they do broader things, but anyways, my point is, if they have a specific industry day, of course, attend that and meet everybody you can. And then you can go to just random events at their agency, wherever somebody is speaking. look at it, see what they're saying, see how you might be able to respond back to the program office and say, hey, I was watching General so-and-so say something about the Navy, about the Army, and I thought it related to what you guys are doing. Something like that. Pay attention to those. And then the last one here is keep learning more about them. I'm alluding to this the whole way, but keep following them. Be on their website. Figure out what changes are being done on their website. If they've got a Facebook page or anything else, just go out there wherever they're posting content, grab it and keep learning. If I have an RFI response, it should be tied to an opportunity I'm thinking is going to be $1 million or $5 million or $500 million. And I want to win it. So me keeping learning about that program office is not wasted time. It's helping me be stronger for my capture. It helps me prepare better for writing a proposal. Okay, so those are some of the tips that I wanted to give you about after you submit an RFI to keep it out of the black hole. Here's what I want you to remember, 3 things. First off, don't fire and forget an RFI response. Follow up, right? Pick up the phone and call them is my second tip. Don't just rely on email. A lot of us do that. Hey, did you get it? You know what happens to email. It goes down. But a voicemail, I get 1 a day at most. Even with spammers, I get 1 a day. I see every voicemail. And federal buyers are the same way. They have many more emails than they do voicemails, so they will see it. It's a way to get in there. You can still do emails, but pick up that phone and call them. And then last thing is keep providing relevant and related value to those program office personnel in particular. All right, just a reminder, tomorrow's training is about setting up strategic planning for 2026. If that's you, make sure you go register. If you're doing 2 million plus and you're looking for help to accelerate into agencies, we have a BD Accelerator workshop. I'd love to talk to you about it. Put workshop in the chat. We had a couple of slots open up for us. And so we're interviewing people to find a couple of other customers to be able to help. For all of us as we move forward, well, first thing, don't forget, I have another RFI training I did 2 days ago. So you can find that replay in this one and really refresh or remind yourself about how to successfully pursue an RFI. Anyways, for all of us though, just remember, government contracting, it's not a secret. It's just a process. I will see you in the next training.